Hey, what's going on, guys? So in this video I wanted to cover the step-by-step process of how I go about actually training my clients, okay? So to make it simple, I'm going to use one of my former clients as a case study, and you guys will see step-by-step of how I actually went about training him and what I actually included in his training routine and everything, okay? So this is Eric Angelo. You can find his week-to-week or month-to-month progression on the Disciple section of this website. But basically, first step is, once Eric contacted me, I always recommended that he come in for a comprehensive fitness assessment, okay? This part is very important to the whole entire training process because it allows me to gather all of the appropriate data to make sure to create an appropriate program for his specific goals, okay? So Eric came in, basically, the first step was to run a complete fitness assessment on him, okay? I had him fill out a comprehensive medical history form. This basically outlined like if he had any serious issues that could hinder his performance in a training routine, okay? So in his case, he had like a little bit of problems with his left shoulder, so I had to take that in consideration with creating a specific program for him, okay? We had to do some corrective exercises, and then we also had to avoid a few exercises in the beginning to avoid basically irritating that shoulder, okay? The second step was we sat down and I asked him a whole bunch of questions of specifically like what he's looking for, what are his specific goals, like how specifically is he trying to transform his physique. So in his case, for instance, he wanted to basically kind of take his body to the next level. He's been physically active and he's been eating well his entire life pretty much, but he wanted to really kind of take it to the next level and bring out the maximum development and the maximum aesthetics in his physique, okay? So he wanted to, get a six-pack abs, have those shredded lines in the serratus, the rib cage area, just bring out a little bit more muscle everywhere, and just kind of look, I guess, like more model ready because he's a swimsuit model as well, okay? So I also went over the level of stress he has on a daily basis because that's important to consider in a training routine, okay? How good his quality of sleep is, and also like how his energy levels are and like what his current eating habits are, what he did in the past in terms of training, etc., etc., because all that information is very important to create a comprehensive routine that he's going to be doing with me, okay? So after that was done, I wanted to run a few numbers on him. So we ran ultrasound body fat, and basically we kind of scanned his whole entire body, and that gave me a good indication of exactly how much unhealthy fat he had, how much healthy fat he had in his body, how much lean body mass, how much water retention he had. And all that stuff is important because specifically without those numbers, you don't know how much body fat a person needs to lose, okay? And it's not enough just to kind of look at the body and say like, oh, you need to lose a little bit more because you're a little bit like too fat around this area and this area. It's always important to be very, very specific with your goals. And that's why I always kind of like run this test on all my clients, okay? Okay, and also, it's important to kind of gauge these numbers on the amount of lean body mass and the amount of fat mass you have because that helps determine basically how many calories a person needs to be eating in order to predictably lose a certain amount of body fat per week, okay? So without attaining these numbers, it's always a guesstimate. You're always just kind of guessing, oh, you should be maybe eating this, maybe eating this. You want to be as precise as possible to not waste any time, okay? So that's why it's very important to run this test on the client, all right? So right after that, we ran body weight, okay, because that's going to help kind of these two work together. You need to know your total body weight to know the amount of fat mass you have, the amount of lean body mass you have, the amount of water retention you have, etc., etc. We ran his circumference measurements, meaning like how big his neck is, how big his chest is, how big his midsection is, and all that was basically used to get a general idea of where he is now and where he needs to be at the end of his transformation, okay? So right after those tests were run, we also ran a postural assessment. And this is also very important because in Eric's case, his goals were aesthetic, they're visual. So obviously you need to have like a certain body fat percentage, have certain dimensions, but also you need to attain good posture because posture alone changes the appearance of your body completely, okay? Compared to when you're slouching forward, compared to when you're standing straight, all of a sudden your shoulders look a lot wider, your midsection looks a lot more narrow, you have like a lot more of a confident appearance to yourself, etc., etc., okay? But also from a functional perspective, you don't want too great of postural deviations because they're going to cause muscle imbalances and that will lead to injuries, okay? So that's why it's very important to run a postural assessment in the entire assessment process as well, all right? So after that, we took Eric's before pictures, which you'll see here, okay? So some people are against doing that, but I think it's very important because it's important to see your body from a third person's perspective, like an outside perspective, okay? That way you can view it from 360 degrees. We took his progression pictures, for instance, from the front, from the side, and from the back, and you'll see those in the disciple section as well. And then we're able to accurately gauge at how he was transforming from week to week and from month to month, okay? That way we're saying like, oh, maybe his chest got a lot bigger 1 month, but his midsection needed a little bit more work, so we kind of tailored his program from there, okay? And then the final part of the assessment was we went over his schedule, his weekly schedule, like how many hours did he have to work? Did he have any extracurricular activities on weekends or after work, etc., etc. And all that stuff was very important because it's important for me to create a comprehensive routine that molds around his schedule. If you're working like 80-hour weeks, obviously it's going to be tough to work out like 10 or 12 hours a week, etc., etc. So right after I finish with the initial assessment, the second step is basically to look over all the data I gathered in order to create a comprehensive routine. Okay, so the first step is I'm going to take a look at the ultrasound test, okay? And to explain this better, I'm going to kind of show it in first person exactly what I do. All right, you guys, so here's Eric's ultrasound report, ultrasound body fat report, and here's why it's important to gather this data before making a program. Okay, so you can see his ultrasound came in at 14.5% body fat, which actually puts him in a healthy category. However, he wants to look very ripped, okay? So in order to do that, for a male, you need to be between 6 to 8%, it's assumed, okay? So everyone's a little bit different, but the general consensus is you need to be around that area. So he needs to drop from 14.5% to about 6 to 8%. So that's our general goal. As you can see here, he's currently carrying 23 pounds of fat mass. He has no excess body fat. His fat-free mass is 38.3 pounds. And he's currently carrying 103.7 pounds of water retention. Okay, and this stuff is important for this reason. So you need an accurate body fat measurement to determine how much fat pounds he needs to lose to get to his 6 to 8% body fat. Okay, you need to know his lean body mass to determine basically how many calories he needs to be eating in order to lose a predictable amount of body fat per week. All right, and you need to basically also know his water retention, because the lower he gets or the closer he gets to his final progression pictures, the more important water retention becomes to the picture, okay? So basically with that data, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna write down his current body weight, which is 165 pounds, okay? His current body fat is 14.5%. He has no excess pounds of fat mass. His healthy amount of body fat is 23 pounds. All right, his muscle mass basically is 38.3 pounds. And the amount of water he's retaining in his body currently is 103.7 pounds, okay? So that's where he is now. Now, to get down to his goal of being very ripped, basically, I estimated that he needs to drop down to 156.7 pounds, okay? He needs to be at a minimum of 8% body fat. All right, once again, excess fat is going to remain the same because he has no excess fat at the moment. All right, his healthy fat needs to be reduced from 23 pounds to 13 pounds, which is basically negative 10-pound difference. Okay, and his muscle mass, I would recommend, since he did want his chest to be bigger, his shoulders to be bigger, etc., to actually increase in the process just by a little bit. So from 38.3 pounds to 40 pounds. Okay, and we're just going to presume for now, to make the measurement simple, that his water weight retention is going to stay the same at 103.7 pounds. So basically, after we've gathered all this data, here's what we can do with it, okay? So since we know he needs to lose 10 pounds of fat mass and gain about 1.7 pounds of muscle, here's what we know. So it's very reasonable to assume he can lose, based off a proper workout and nutrition program, 2 pounds of fat mass per week, okay? So knowing that he needs to lose 10 pounds total, this tells us that it's going to take him 5 weeks to lose the amount of body fat, okay? To lose the amount of body fat he needs to lose, which is 10 pounds, okay? However, he also wants to gain about 1.7 pounds of muscle to make his body look more muscular and full. So muscle is always a longer process than fat loss, and it's always a little bit tougher to estimate as well than fat loss. But I would presume it would take him another 3 to 4 weeks to accomplish that goal. So to make his complete transformation, it's estimated that it would take him about 9 weeks or so, okay, just to be safe. So 8 to 9 weeks. All right, so now we have a general timeline with how long it's going to take us to accomplish this goal. The next step is to determine how many calories he needs to be eating on a daily basis to attain these type of numbers, all right? So this is also going to vary with the training program as well. Obviously, during certain weeks, he's going to be working out more than other weeks or with more intensity, so you're going to need to vary the calorie intake from there. But the general amount of calories he'll be eating is going to be attained through this number here, okay? So we know, for instance, his total lean mass is about 144 pounds from this data here. All right, so we would simply write it 144 pounds at a 0, okay? Determine basically his activity level. We'll just say it's like a 0.7, okay? Then we're going to add his lean body mass again, which will give us a total calorie index, a daily calorie index of 2,488 calories estimated, okay? And then once again, this is going to vary a little bit from week to week, right? Depending on his intensity levels and how many compound movements he's doing, etc., etc. But this is the general number that he needs to eat on a daily basis to lose 10 pounds and gain about 1.7 pounds of muscle mass during that 8 to 9 week period, okay? So this is all very important to outline before beginning a training routine, all right? Because once again, it's all about making it predictable and staying away from guesstimating, because you don't want to waste time and energy and effort, okay? And this is one way to do that. The second step is to look over the initial pictures we took of Eric's physique during the assessment. Because his goals are aesthetically or visually inclined, it's important to kind of take a look at his body from an artistic perspective, okay? So once again, to make this easier to understand, I'm going to be showing this in first person as well. Okay, so after we finished basically looking over his ultrasound data, looking over his numbers, determining how many weeks it's going to take to accomplish his goal, how much pounds of body fat he's going to need to lose, how many pounds of muscle he's going to need to gain, and also how many calories he needs to eat on a daily basis on average, it's time to kind of look at his pictures and see how we need to transform his body, okay? So here are his initial progression pictures, and here's basically what I see he needs to change to accomplish his goal, okay? So I can take a look at his body here, and I can basically see he needs to work on trimming down his midsection just a little bit, okay? So we're going to work on bringing in the love handles a bit, okay? Really touching up these areas here, all right? Making it a lot leaner, okay? We also need to work on enhancing the size and density and visual of the chest, okay? So we're going to work on making the chest look a lot bigger and be bigger in size, bringing out that center divider as well, because that's going to be very important for the aesthetics of the chest, all right? And although the traps are a small muscle group, the traps being these muscles here, it's going to be very important to make those look a lot bigger as well, because that's going to bring in more of a muscular appearance to his whole entire body in general, especially from that front progression view, okay? Next step is we're going to work on enhancing the width of his shoulders, okay? Because it's important to have wide shoulders when you want a V-tapered appearance and when you want a more narrow looking midsection, because the wider your shoulders are, the more narrow your midsection will appear, okay? So we're going to work on enhancing the width of those shoulders, the density of those shoulders as well, all right? Once again, the size of the traps, bringing in his midsection, working his abs and dyeing his body fat down quite a bit to bring in that kind of shredded six-pack look. And also, so boom, 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 okay? And then also we want to bring in more of those serratus muscles as well, okay? Which are gonna kind of like enhance the visual appearance of the abs in general, because it all works the same. So our general goal is to kind of like have a body that looks like this at the end from the front view. Now from the back, here's what I see. Eric already has like a pretty decent V-tapered appearance, but his back kind of lacks definition, okay? So we're gonna work on enhancing, making the width of his lats even more pronounced, okay? So bringing in, once again, those love handles, kind of dyeing that body fat down to make it even more narrow in the midsection portion here, okay? Boom, boom, bam, all right? So kind of increasing the density and width of his rear delts to give more of that V-tapered appearance from the back, all right? That's gonna be very important. Once again, working on those traps, because there are a lot of muscles in this area in general, so the better developed they are, the more defined and ripped your back looks in general. So we're gonna try to do that. Bam, okay. And dye your body fat down so he has like more of like a Christmas tree appearance here in the lower back, more definition in the lower back, and generally more definition and width in the back in general, okay? So that's gonna be our goal with his back progression picture. Now from his front, you'll see he has somewhat of forward shoulder protrusion. His head's kind of tilted forward as well, so we're going to need to work on bringing his head back, okay, fixing his posture a little bit so he has a bit of a better posture, bringing his shoulders back as well, okay? So that way his shoulders automatically look a lot wider because he's standing a lot straighter, okay? Outside of that, we're going to work on narrowing down his midsection, okay, which is going to be pretty important for his goal. Going to work in bringing that chest density out, okay? Making those shoulders a lot denser and more rounder and pronounced. Once again, working those traps. Boom, boom, okay? We're gonna kind of try to make those biceps more pronounced, and especially the triceps more pronounced as well. That's gonna be very important, okay? So bringing in that definition, boom, boom, boom. There we go. And forearms aren't gonna be too important because, I mean, long-term they're gonna be important for him to develop, but for now, we're not gonna prioritize our workouts around the forearms because the amount of time I have with Eric is very limited, so I want to mainly focus on the bigger picture, okay? So basically, here's how I plan his body to look like at the end of the transformation, all right? So after we're done looking over the numbers from the ultrasound, getting a good understanding of the direction we want to take his body from the pictures, our next goal is to create a workout program tailored around his specific goals, okay? So just to make this easier, once again, I'm going to be showing this in first person. All right, so now since we finished basically looking over Eric's ultrasound, looking over his progression pictures, I was able to put together a comprehensive program for him, okay? So this is phase 1 of his program, and basically it is already printed out and completed, but let me go over it with you, okay? So I always kind of include a visual for my clients to allow them to understand like how specifically they're trying to transform their physique, okay? So you can see here, there's an outline of specifically like how many cardio sessions he needs to be doing, when he needs to be doing those cardio sessions, etc., and then what kind of body groups he's gonna be emphasizing during the week also, okay? There's some general goals he needs to cover, and also some weekly progression measurements just to keep him on track that we need to be taking. So where he's starting, and then also like on specific dates, we need to be taking certain measurements and the numbers he needs to be coming in at those specific dates to come into his end goal of being at 8% body fat with 156 pounds or so, okay? Then we'll also be taking his, like outside of his weight, we'll be taking his chest on a weekly basis, shoulders, and midsection to gauge at how his lean body mass is progressing, okay? And then once a month, outside of these weekly measurements, we'll be redoing his whole entire assessment, so basically retaking his pictures, retaking his ultrasound measurements, and then doing his complete circumference measurements as well, okay? As you can see here, all the workouts are outlined for him. So here he will see like exactly what he needs to be doing on Monday, sets, reps, rest intervals, etc., exact exercises, exact warm-ups, etc. You'll see here what he needs to be doing on Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, and Friday, and then like all his ab workouts he needs to be doing post cardio sessions as well, okay? So everything's very outlined, exact sets, exact reps, exact tempo, exact rest interval, everything's on here, okay? And basically it's important to have this And it's important to not wing workouts, meaning like you show up and the trainer just gives you a random workout to do for that day, because how I say, if you don't plan, you definitely plan to fail, okay? So it's very important to be very organized, very structured in your whole entire layout and know exactly what to do from day one to the final day of your complete transformation, okay? So try to stay away from doing like random workouts or showing up and training randomly. Okay, then once I finish creating the workout program for Eric, the next step is to create the nutrition program. So here, once again, it's also outlined exactly how many ounces of protein he needs to be taking, how many ounces of fat he needs to be taking on a daily basis, how many ounces of carbohydrates he needs, like vegetables, etc., how many meals he should be eating, what time of the day he should be eating those meals, the amount of calories that all those meals equal to, etc., okay? And then also what's included down here is specifically what type of supplements he needs to be taking on a daily basis, or maybe once a week or twice a week certain supplements are taking, etc. But everything's very laid out and everything is very organized in this routine, all right? So it's easy to read and easy to implement consistently as well, which is what's very important in a training routine is consistency, okay? And to know like where you're starting and where you're headed and what to do basically from step one to your final progression pictures, all right? So try to kind of, once again, stay away from general rules. I mean, for health and wellness, general rules are okay, like generally eat whole food, don't eat out, don't eat fried food, etc. But to really optimize your fitness goals, you need to be very, very precise with how many meals you should be eating, the macro distribution of those meals, how many calories you should be getting on a daily basis, etc., okay? All that needs to be very exact if you really want to optimize your results and look your best, all right? You can't wing that one for sure. And the last step is to create a specific schedule tailored for Eric's goals, okay? So it's not enough having just showing up for workouts, etc. Everything needs to be very organized. Eric needs to know exactly when he should be eating his meals, Monday through Sunday, exactly when he should be working out, at what times during the day, etc., where he should be working out, where he should be doing his morning cardio routines, okay? This organization is very important because without that organization, without that structure, workouts are going to be very inconsistent, okay? Something will always come up, and I find the client to be very inconsistent without outlining a specific structured schedule for that client, okay? So once again, I'm going to show you in first person what I'm talking about when I create a schedule for a client. Okay, and the last thing that's included in Eric's training routine is a complete organization of how his week should look to optimize his results, okay? So you can see here, I basically have outlined exactly what he should be doing from the second he wakes up to the second he goes to sleep, like when he should be eating those meals, when specifically he should be working out, like when he has his work schedule, how to get the meals in during that work schedule, okay, when to do his morning cardio routines, when to do his weightlifting routines, when to go to sleep, okay, when to run his errands. Everything's outlined to maximize his results, okay? So that pretty much outlines the step-by-step process I take when creating a program for specific clients, okay? So once again, like a quick outline, the client will receive comprehensive 9-week workout program, a comprehensive 9-week nutrition program. And I'm saying 9 weeks just because it only took Eric about 8 to 9 weeks to accomplish his goal. But some clients come in with a lot higher body fat percentage, so it might take them a little bit longer, okay? Also, Eric received a comprehensive schedule on exactly what he should be doing on a day-to-day basis from the second he wakes up to the second he goes to sleep to maximize his fitness goals, okay? So he knows what to do outside of the gym, not just working out in the gym, okay? Because what you do outside of the gym is going to be far more important, far more impactful than what you actually do in the gym. And then also Eric received a free book that I published a year ago, and this book basically outlines how he should engineer his lifestyle to maximize his fitness goals, specifically why he's eating the type of foods he's eating in his nutrition program, specifically why he's working out the type of way he's working out in his workout program. It also kind of goes over a lot of fat loss trickery tips, how to kind of lose body fat a lot faster, what type of supplements you should be taking, what type of supplements you shouldn't be taking, etc. They also, there's a chapter on how mental stress kind of hinders fat loss, and a couple of other topics related to fat loss in general, okay? Because I believe it's very important to educate the client on the workout program so they can kind of put the pieces together when they're not with you, and thus maximize the results when they are with you, okay? So I hope that clears up on exactly how I train my clients, and that way it allows you to make a better decision if I'm the right trainer for you.